folks, Linda here from Back Third Acre. It's springtime and it's time to plant carrots. I have never had success growing carrots directly in the ground. So a few years ago I started to grow them in grow bags and have had amazing success with it. So I'm going to walk through how to set them up. Growing carrots in a grow bag or a other type of a container, a hard-sided container, is a great accessible way to garden. So when you grow in containers, you can raise them up to the height that you need them in order to take care of their needs. Particularly with carrots, when you need to thin them, having them raised up onto a higher surface is a great way of easing back pain, or if you have mobility challenges, to tend to them without having to bend down right to the ground. So as far as accessibility for gardening goes, consider container gardening for carrots. So for carrots, choose a larger container just so you can get more carrots in there. And the soil needs to be really loose and crumbly. This is important for carrots because if they hit large chunks like this, then the carrot itself will split into two or become deformed. So if you're wanting nice looking carrots, make sure you take out any big chunks like this. Even with your best container soil, you tend to get some of these. Depending on the depth of your pot, I would choose something that's got a reasonable depth to it if you're going to grow longer rooted carrots, and if you're going to grow shorter ones, then you can go with a shorter pot like this one. So you can also, there's two different options. You can get pelleted seeds, which are encased with, there's one there that just popped out, that are encased with some clay. And the benefit of pelleted seeds, so that's what they look like, they're just little white pellets. The benefit of these is they're larger, so they are easier to spread in your container, in your soil, to make sure that you've got even distribution, because thinning carrots can be a bit of a challenge for carrot growers. So having pelleted versions reduce the need for thinning. Compared to the typical carrot seed here, which is extremely fine. So again, if you've got some issues around mobility or fine motor control, the option to explore is definitely the pelleted carrots. So nutrients for carrots, they require a nice balanced fertilizer. So a 4-4-4 is one thing that I'm going to be adding in for my carrots, and just sprinkle some on top, and then I'm going to mix it in. Carrots also, because they're a root vegetable, need a 2 to 3 times higher amount of phosphate than nitrogen. So I'm going to add a little bit of, this is a mineralized phosphate, and this is an organic product here as well. I also like to add a little bit of azomite, so for organic minerals and trace elements in there as well. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top there. Then just mix that in. You don't really need to fertilize your carrots throughout the growing season. If you give them some compost, this is good potting soil here, and I've mixed in some compost as well as I put it into the bag. So you don't really need it to add more throughout the year. If you do feel that's necessary, if your soil is particularly depleted, you could add in just some seaweed extract or fish fertilizer, something that's quite mild. So the seeds, carrots can be difficult to germinate. If you're using pelleted seeds, it's important to be aware that they require a little bit more water then do the other type of seeds, because the clay is going to absorb some of that. So you can just poke some little holes around the soil and pop the seeds in, and to help take care of some of that spacing issue right from the beginning, reducing the need to thin them out later. And again, the pelleted seeds are really nice because as I pop them into the hole, I can see them, which the normal type you can't. So this way I know I've got a nice even distribution and I don't have a whole bunch of them crowded up together. Keeping carrots moist throughout the germination period is essential, and it's usually where people run into the most difficulties if the soil dries out. I have found the bags, especially these bags, they don't get overwatered because it drains really well. There. We're almost done. Them planted in there, you can just give them a nice movement over the top. You don't want to cover them heavily, or they'll have difficulty popping up to the surface. Take between 14 to 21 days to germinate, so you need to make sure that you're keeping the top of your soil moist for that entire time. What I like about growing in containers, especially with carrots, is that it makes succession planning or planting easier. So these ones have been growing here for at least a month. Then I've got another bag further back here. Those have been in for about 2 to 3 weeks, I guess, and then this one being planted right now. So as one bag is finished, I can move to the next one and have a steady supply of carrots throughout the year. These carrots are at the stage where they're going to need some thinning, so you want to leave about 2 inches in between the carrots, so that as they grow they can have room to expand. So you have to go through and just pull them out, and my chickens will be happy to get some carrot tops for a little snack in a few minutes. But again, this process is much easier when they're in a grow bag or a container up on a raised surface. Way easier to do this if you've got a sore back or you know, something that's preventing you from getting right down to the ground for extended periods of time. You can also wait till the carrots get a little bit bigger before you thin them. That's fine too, but you definitely want to make sure you're on it, so at some point, so that the carrots have room to mature and to expand in there and aren't too crowded. Also take out the weakest little carrot and keep your strongest ones in there. So right here I've got 2 really strong ones growing close together, so I'm just going to pull one of those out, and then I got another little one that's kind of weak right here. I'm just going to take that one out as well to give them some space so they're not crowded. There, that'll do for now. So there's more space in here for them to continue to grow and for that root to develop nice and big. Yeah, let's look at that. That's even already starting, that little one there. There we go. Now, they like to be in full sun, so the other benefit of having them in a grow bag or a container is that you can move them to where the sun is. If you have a limited gardening space, or if you're in a rental or even in an apartment, you can move them out onto your deck. So you want to make sure that the carrots are well watered at all times during the germination stage. Especially if you're using pelletized seed, because that clay is going to absorb some of that moisture and you don't want it to dry out. So water them well. I check these every day during this stage. Once they've germinated nicely, then it's every few days for watering depending on the weather.